Welcome to the High Performance Edge, the podcast for contractors who lead with building science and want to turn that advantage into a stronger, more successful business. Whether you're in HVAC, insulation, solar, or home performance, we dig into strategy, sales, marketing, operations, hiring, and customer service approaches that power stable, more profitable companies. Hear from top contractors and industry experts as we explore what it takes to thrive as a very different kind of contractor. Here's your host, founder and CEO of Energy Circle, Peter Troast.
Greetings all, thanks for being here. Today's episode is one of my occasional solo casts, no guest, just me, on a topic I think really matters for the high-performance contracting community. This one is on price transparency, the whole question of whether contractors should publicly post their pricing on their websites. It feels like everywhere you turn in HVAC and home performance right now, there's a loud voice insisting that exposing your prices is some kind of holy grail, that it'll grow your leads and convert more of them into jobs. And a lot of good companies have heard that and concluded it's a mandate: publish prices or lose out. High-performance contractors understandably bristle at this. How can you possibly price a job before you've even seen the house? For sure, homeowners are interested in price. That part's not in dispute, and in this episode, I'll share our real data on just how much they want it. But there's also a real danger in exposing the full cost of a comprehensive job to a homeowner who doesn't yet understand what they're looking at. Someone whose sole reason for calling was that they thought they just needed a ductless heat pump or a little attic insulation. Hit that person with a big number before you've met them, run your diagnostics, understood the actual problem, and shown them the high-performance difference, and more often than not, that number is a wall. A lot of research went into this one. I share what we're seeing in the Energy Circle Intelligence dataset, but it's also super practical. I'll give you what I think is the best practice and point you to a live example you can go look at yourself. Before diving in, a quick reminder about the U.S. Heat Pump Summit coming up September 15th and 16th in Worcester, Massachusetts, just outside Boston. It's the fourth year of the event. I've attended and spoken at the last two, and in my opinion, it's one of the best of the year. What makes the summit different is not just that it's entirely heat pump focused, but that it's built squarely around the contractor. The manufacturers, distributors, software companies, and programs are all there, but contractors are at the center. Many of the people on stage are contractors sharing their business successes and challenges in amazingly open ways. Last year, I watched one very successful company hand out his actual P&L. There are both technical and business tracks, and a unique format I like a lot: small, hosted conversation tables on specific topics with industry leaders. Everyone we sent last year got a ton out of it, and don't let the New England location fool you, it's definitely a national event. Through our support and sponsorship, we can offer a limited number of free tickets for first-time contractor attendees and High Performance Edge listeners. Go to usheatpumpsummit.com/exclusive, usheatpumpsummit.com/exclusive, or reach out to me directly at peter@energycircle.com. Here's my solo cast on price transparency. Here's a question I want you to sit with for a second. A homeowner in your market, let's call her Agatha, is sitting on her couch at 9 o'clock at night. She just read one of her kids a bedtime story and the room was stuffy and warm. Timmy was complaining that it's too hot to get to sleep. The neighbors recently upgraded their house and raved about their new heat pumps. So she does what everybody does now. She picks up her phone and she types 3 words into Google: heat pump cost. Because at this stage of her thinking, the first thing on her mind, before trying to understand how heat pumps work, before trying to look for a contractor, is, can we even afford to fix this problem? 10 years ago, the search term heat pump cost would have produced a list of contractors: your website, your competitor's website, maybe a manufacturer page. Today, that's not what she sees at all. Search is in a huge state of flux now, so she might see an AI overview at the top of the page, confidently telling her what a heat pump should cost before she's clicked on a single thing. She sees a filter button that says under $3,500. She sees a get quote button on a local services ad. She sees a sponsored listing from some venture-backed startup promising her a price in 2 minutes with no home visit. And your website, if it shows up at all, is somewhere way down the page. Even if it were to get found, it won't rank well because it says nothing about the one thing she actually asked about, which is pricing. That's the world we're living in today. And I want to talk about what it means for high-performance contractors, because what I see is that most good companies aren't saying anything on their websites about price at all for very understandable reasons. Until recently, it wasn't a best practice to have a pricing page, but more importantly for high-performance contractors, it feels like malpractice to talk about price before you've even seen the home, assessed it, and run some diagnostics. It's the equivalent of the doctor diagnosing a condition without seeing the patient or running some blood tests. So first, let's dig a little deeper on what's going on and why we're suddenly hearing about price transparency everywhere we turn. It didn't just happen by accident. There are some clear forces pushing on it all at the same time and all in the same direction. The first and the biggest is Google. Google is in the midst of completely redesigning the search experience around AI, and at the same time has very much elevated the visibility of price information. Get quote filters, online estimate buttons in Google Business Profile, and then in AI mode, where we're more and more seeing a button that says have AI get prices. And then you've got all of the other LLMs, ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity, and every one of them cheerfully generating a cost range for any project a homeowner asks about in about 5 seconds with total confidence. And here's the part that's worrisome. The homeowner has no way to evaluate whether that number is any good. Now, having said that, there's a side of AI research that we're following very closely and is, in my opinion, a very good thing for high-performance contractors. I've been calling it the high-performance contractor's new best friend, but more on that in just a minute. The second force is the Silicon Valley crowd. You've probably heard of many of these companies. They're venture-backed, tech-forward, heat pump installers, and they've made instant online quoting the entire centerpiece of their brand. A quote in 2 minutes, no home visit, no pressure, rebates calculated, install scheduled. And their pitch, which I read many times because it is a kind of a thing of beauty, is they say getting a heat pump used to mean, and this is a quote, used to mean contractor calls, site visits, and outdated systems. So in one very quick sentence, they've insulted almost every traditional contractor in the country. The site visit, which we all know is the responsible way to do this work, they've reframed as the old, broken, annoying way. That's the competition we're up against, and they're real. The third force is the software vendors themselves. Your field service management platform, Service Titan, or whoever it is, has within it a price book and has almost certainly launched some flavor of instant quoting in the last couple of years, and they're selling it to you as the new table stakes. You have to have this or you'll lose. And every day, some new tool appears that enables instant quoting and promises more and better leads and better conversions. Also in this category are homegrown tools. Those of us that have become infatuated with the sudden coding superpowers via Claude Code, and that certainly would include me, are spinning up quoting tools right and left. Too often, these tools aren't strategic. They get built and added to websites because it's now easy and possible, and on the surface, they look spiffy and advanced, but are often at complete odds with business strategy. A fourth force is us. It's the high-performance contracting community, because the way most high-performance contractors have responded to all of this is by saying nothing at all. Total silence on price. For most of us, it just hasn't reared its head. We deal with the price questions once we're engaged with the lead, and no one said information about pricing was important or the new norm. And here's the thing I really want you to hear. In a world where everyone else is shouting about price, silence isn't neutral anymore. Silence is a signal, and the signal it sends is, this one's going to be expensive, and I need to be cagey about talking about it. Now, I want to be really clear about something because I know exactly what's probably on many of your minds at this point. You're thinking that pricing a job before you've seen the house is malpractice. And obviously, that's not wrong. Pricing a solution before you understand the problem is unlikely to be accurate, and some would say borders on unethical, because so much of the purpose of lowball upfront pricing is to get in the home at all costs and upsell later. I totally get that, and the instinct is correct, but it's not the whole story. And the reason it's not the whole story is that there's a difference, a huge difference, between refusing to hand someone a fake number and refusing to talk about price at all. Those are not the same thing. And most contractors have collapsed them into the same thing. They've taken a good instinct, I won't quote what I haven't seen, and turned it into a bad practice, I won't discuss cost until the proposal. That gap between those two extremes is what we need to resolve here. Let me pause here for a second, though, so you don't get the impression that I think the only answer to this is to slap an instant quote tool on your website. It's not. It's worth going deeper about exactly why those tools fail in our kind of work. Where online HVAC quoting tools got their start was in box swapping. My 3-ton AC broke, and therefore I need a new 3-ton AC. Like for like box swap. Set aside for a minute the likelihood that the size was wrong in the first place and it's getting perpetuated, and you have to admit that it's useful. The homeowner can get an array of prices across a bunch of different products from different manufacturers at different efficiency levels, and that price is probably pretty close to what they might actually pay in the end. But the bigger issue, as these tools have evolved, is that they've attempted to apply to more complex installs and even full home performance scopes. There's a big problem with that, which is that they assume the homeowner knows things they don't. And I'm not speaking hypothetically here. We've looked at a lot of real quote tools on real contractor websites, and let me walk you through what we found. The simplest one asks one question: how many tons of cooling do you need? And look, even if a homeowner knows their tonnage, all they've done is priced out a like-for-like box swap. The more sophisticated tools are worse because they try to do the whole thing. I found one that asks the homeowner to choose whether they need, and I'm quoting here, rim joist spray foam at $14 a linear foot. Rim joist. To a homeowner, Agatha, our fictitious uncomfortable mom, is sitting there going, what on earth is a rim joist, and how am I supposed to know how many feet of them I have? And that's question one. Then it asks her about whether she wants 2-inch rigid foam board at R14, whether she wants a blower door test, what her current attic insulation level is, and the options are none, some, inadequate, adequate, or unknown, where inadequate is defined as less than R38. And then I love this one. It asks whether she needs the existing insulation removed first because it might be wet, moldy, or pest damaged. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, those are exactly the questions you would answer on a site visit. And that's the point. Those are contractor questions being asked of a homeowner who 10 minutes ago was just entering into Google, how much does insulation cost? She doesn't know if her attic is R19 or R38. She's guessing. And every single guess she makes moves that number in the calculator up or down by thousands of dollars. And then the tool does the cruelest thing of all. It adds it all up and shows her a number. Your project will cost between $27,407 to $35,196. For a homeowner who, in this example, started the evening just curious about insulation, that number is a wall. It doesn't start a conversation, it ends one. She closes the tab and moves on. She either calls the cheapest guy she can find, or she decides the whole thing is out of reach, or most likely, she does nothing at all. That's where online pricing calculators fail. Enough specificity to be terrifying, not enough accuracy to be trusted, the worst of both worlds. Okay, so if instant quoting is broken and silence is also broken, what do we actually know about what homeowners want? And this is where I get to show you some of our own data, because at Energy Circle, we're sitting on a pretty unusual view of this. Let me give you 3 numbers. Number 1, we looked at search volume across 5 categories: heat pumps, HVAC systems, furnaces, air conditioners, insulation. Just those 5. And we found roughly 81,000 distinct price-related search terms within those overall buckets. Those terms generate about 1.3 million Google searches every month. That's around 15 million price searches a year in just those 5 categories. This is not a niche of cheapskates and tire kickers. This is a nationwide drumbeat. How much does a heat pump cost? 1,600 times a month. Heat pump installation prices, almost 10,000 times a month. So the takeaway here is that people have a genuine and legitimate interest in understanding price and cost. And it's also important to recognize that this cuts across all demographics, from the Wall Street guy in the big house to the school teacher. Number two, we went into our call tracking data. This is real phone calls. We record about 500 of them every day, and we can query them. So this data comes from about 12,000 over 90 days coming into HVAC and insulation and solar and home performance contractors all over the country. And about 28% of those calls, more than 1 in 4, reference price or cost or estimate or quote in some way. And if you tighten it down to just the people clearly asking for a price up front, give me a ballpark, it's still about 12%, 1 in 8 calls. Somebody calling a contractor and asking essentially, before I let you into the house, can you give me some idea of what this might cost? But honestly, the number I care about most isn't the percentage, it's the language. Because when you actually read these transcripts, you hear the same thing over and over, and it'll break your heart. You hear people say, I'm just trying to get a ballpark before we schedule anything. I'd like to get a rough idea before I have someone come out. Can you just give me a sense of what something like this runs? Listen to the hesitation in that. That's the sound of somebody who's a little embarrassed to be asking, somebody who's been trained by years of dealing with home services companies to feel like asking about price is a little bit rude, and they're asking anyway because they need to know. And here's number 3, which is the saddest part. When they don't get an answer, we can see what happens next in the transcripts. Some of them say, well, let me talk to my spouse and I'll call you back, which we all know what that means. That's code for I have no way to make this decision without a number, so I'm going to go quiet now. Some say I'm going to shop around, which means the next contractor on the list gets the exact same question and a shot at the exact same customer. And some of them just say it flat out, I wanted a ballpark, I didn't get one, and I'm not going to schedule a visit. Conversation's over, the lead is gone, you paid to make the phone ring, and now you've lost that lead. Now, I want to return to AI for a minute and the point I made before about it being the high-performance contractor's new best friend. AI is increasingly utilized by homeowners in 2 important ways. First, in doing all parts of the research at the beginning of the process and the evaluation. And then second, as a way of vetting actual proposals. We're seeing more and more from our clients and from my contractor friends, examples of people who've taken their proposals, dumped them into AI, and gotten a response. Now, at Energy Circle, we dissect the funnel in pretty granular ways because we've discovered through testing over time that a homeowner's journey is more complex than it might seem on the surface, and that there are specific and sometimes very nuanced marketing and advertising tactics we can use to influence them at each stage of their exploration. Well before they get to the bottom of the funnel, where they have high buying intent and are ready to actually look for a heat pump installer to contact, there are at least 3 layers of exploration that happen in the top of the funnel prior to that place. At the very top, you have kind of exploratory, broad awareness kinds of questions. Is a heat pump better than a furnace? Are heat pumps good in my particular climate? But slightly down from that is where people are starting to do more consideration and comparison and specific project research. How does a heat pump versus a gas furnace compare from a cost standpoint? Are there incentives that I can find? What about a ductless versus a ducted heat pump? And then even farther down the funnel, but not quite to the buying intent, how they start to look for solutions and planning and readiness signals. What types of contractors do heat pump installation? What's a typical price? How do I know if a contractor has expertise and is good at heat pumps? The key point here is that even at those exploratory levels of the funnel, as they are kind of moving down towards having more buying intent, there is a frequent and very often set of questions about price that are always part of that discussion. People fundamentally don't want to enter down that journey without at least having some sense of, in the end, what is this really going to cost? Knowing that AI is getting used more and more at these various stages of the consideration and exploration, we've been doing a lot of work to try to understand what AI tells a homeowner about the things that they ought to keep in mind when they consider going towards a heat pump and what kind of contractor they should get. And this is what I mean by it being really good news. We've looked across the major LLMs, ChatGPT and Gemini, Claude, and Perplexity, and with some degree of consistency. Each one of them is saying you should be looking for the right sizing and system design, including the use of a manual J. In some cases, they're even recommending that there be a ductwork evaluation and manual D. They're talking about very specific credentials and compliance, and not just standard kinds of licensing things, but specific certifications like NATE or BPI. They're talking about installation and commissioning and whether or not performance is verified at the end of upon completion of the job. They're talking about the proposal process and how that works. They're talking about various financial warranty and reputational kinds of things about the contractor and about the availability of rebates, tax credits, incentives, etc. So all of that, in my view, is very positive in the sense that what it's doing is giving a homeowner who typically would not have known anything about how to make a sophisticated decision about a heat pump acquisition, and giving them the tools that we really want them to have to make the right kinds of decisions. So that, in my view, is a really positive thing. The other place where this comes to bear is when somebody takes your proposal and dumps it into an LLM and asks for an evaluation. And I'm going to quote from a good friend who sent me sent me the client's email on what got said. And this is what the client said in response to them. I thought I would run your proposal through ChatGPT. Below is what it said. Specifically on price, I had 4 estimates. You were $6,000 higher than the lowest price, but your system design was by far the best. Just a moment on a Sunday afternoon to tell you to keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it and look forward to the install. So in this case, thanks to ChatGPT, this homeowner was convinced that the quality of the design, the system design, was superior enough to justify them paying $6,000 more than the next lowest bid. This new phenomenon of people sticking quotes into AI to get evaluations from them has caused us to make some recommendations about what you should start including in your quotes, but that's a topic for a future discussion. I want to bring in one outside voice here, and that's Marcus Sheridan. He has some presence in HVAC and home performance, so you may have heard of him, but he's become well known for his views on pricing and home services generally. For those who don't know the name, Marcus was a pool guy. Fiberglass swimming pools in Virginia. When the 2008 crash hit, the pool business fell off the cliff and he was about to lose everything. So out of basically desperation, he started writing blog posts that answered every single question a customer had ever asked him, including the questions the pool industry refused to talk about, the big one being, how much does a pool actually cost? To be clear, this was an early internet first mover advantage thing for that moment, but it worked. River Pools became one of the most visited swimming pool websites on earth. He saved the company and he wrote a book about the whole philosophy called They Ask, You Answer that sold over 100,000 copies. I got to sit down with Marcus at an event in Denver recently, and what I'll tell you is that his position is more careful than people give him credit for. He's not out there telling you to put a price list on your website. That's not the argument. His argument is that homeowners get frustrated and suspicious when price information is completely absent. When you dodge the topic entirely, people don't assume the best, they assume the worst. And that reframes the whole question for us. The question was never, should I put prices on my website, yes or no? That's not the right question. The right one is, how do I respond to this completely legitimate, incredibly widespread demand for price information in a way that doesn't undermine the high-performance approach that makes my work worth paying for? So with all that background and data, here's where I've landed on this topic and what we're doing and recommending to our clients. The reframe I want you to take away from this episode is to stop thinking about price transparency and start thinking about price orientation. That difference is everything. Price transparency says, tell them what it costs. And in our high performance work, you often can't, at least honestly. Price orientation says something different. It says be transparent about how pricing works, not the number, the process behind the number, the logic, the variables, the reason two houses that look identical from the street can be $20,000 apart. And the single best place to do that, the highest leverage piece of content you can build, is a real pricing page on your website. Not a contact form, not a sentence that says pricing varies, call for a quote. An actual substantive page whose entire job is to answer in good faith the question every single homeowner shows up with. Put it right in your main navigation, and I'll tell you, most high-performance contractors don't have one of these, which is exactly why building one is such an advantage right now. So what goes on it? Let me give you the essentials. I believe you should name the friction right up front. Say it out loud on the page. You probably came here looking for a number, and we get that. That honesty right at the top, that's what builds the trust. You're showing them you understand what they want. Then you explain why diagnosis has to come first. And the analogy I love here is medical. No good doctor prices your surgery over the phone before they've examined you. Nobody thinks that's the doctor being difficult. They understand the diagnosis has to come first. Same with the house. Then you list the things that actually move the price, the condition of the home, the scope of the work, the equipment, access, rebates and incentives. You're pulling back the curtain, not on the number, but on the machinery. Then, and this one's powerful, show a side-by-side comparison. How the high-performance approach works versus how a typical contractor works. First conversation, diagnosis, the number they see first, what happens after the job's done. You put those two columns next to each other, and you make the whole bait and switch, low price, then upsell pattern visible without ever having to name a single competitor. The chart does the work. You tie the pricing conversation to your process, and you lean hard into how much value you're delivering for free or close to it before any real money changes hands. The listening, the diagnostics, the design, that's a gift, and most contractors undersell it. You answer the real questions, a genuine FAQ. Why won't you just give me a ballpark? Answer it, don't dodge it. And you close with a low friction next step. Not let us into your house, just have a conversation, a phone call, a few minutes, no pressure. Now, I want to inject something here that relates to each of your individual business strategy. What I just described explains how pricing works, but has no numbers in it at all. There are cases, and I'll give you some real-world examples, where exposing prices is a specific strategy to weed out the wrong kind of customers. Dan Paranco of Balance Point Home Performance in the foothills north of Sacramento, California, is small intentionally. But he's an incredible contractor, and I've heard it said that if you get him to work on your house, you've won the lottery. Dan's business is himself and a few helpers. So he takes the calls, he does all the quotes, he does all the work. He's in such demand that he's booked out for almost a year. So the last thing in the world someone like Dan needs is to be taking a lot of calls from people who are tire kickers, who don't understand the comprehensive nature of the kind of work that he does. So he's been very clear on his website about answering the question of whether we are a good fit for you. And he's super clear. We do comprehensive jobs, and he, in some cases, may even put a number in there that says these jobs go up to $50,000. And that is one business strategy that works for him. That particular feature, the Are We the Right Company for You, is one of the features that we show in the demo site that we built with the folks at Amply Energy. You can find that site at demo.energycircle.com. And what we've added to it very recently is a prototype pricing page. All the things I've talked about here, all laid out and easy to see. Use it if you find it to be a good fit for your business and your website. And if you'd like some help, we'd love to talk. Let me leave you with this, because I can imagine listening to this may strike some fear. Many good contractors experience the price question as a threat. Your work is different, it's better, but you're afraid you're going to be labeled too expensive and dismissed before the homeowner ever understands what you actually do. I think the demand for price information is more opportunity than threat. Think of it as the opening. It's the single best moment you will ever get to explain why swapping a box or blowing in the cheapest possible insulation doesn't actually solve the problem they called you about. When a homeowner asks about price, they've just handed you the opportunity. It's your chance to walk them through your diagnostics, why you've recommended what you have, and why the cheaper quotes are unlikely to work. That's the difference between price transparency and price orientation, and how high-performance contractors can win. The High Performance Edge podcast is brought to you by our company, Energy Circle, the marketing agency that for 15 years has served the most successful high-performance contractors in the country. Curious about whether we might be a good fit for your marketing and website needs? It begins with a no-obligation, no hard sales discussion of your business and goals and an honest assessment of whether we can make an outsized impact on your company. Check out energycircle.com or email me directly at peter@energycircle.com.